Hi, and thanks for joining me today on this webinar. Uh, Today we're going to talk about 4 things you need to know about immunity, okay? And that seems to be a good topic for now, given the coronavirus and all affecting our lives as it is. So let's move on here. Number one, what is the immune system? Well, according to Merriam-Webster's definition of immune system, it's a bodily system that protects the body from foreign substances, cells, and tissues by producing an immune response. And that is propagated through the thymus, the spleen, the lymph nodes, special deposits of lymphoid tissues, as in the GI tract and bone marrow, and macrophages, lymphocytes, including the B and T cells, and antibodies. I will add this, that every aspect of the immune system originates in the bone marrow. And it originates in the bone marrow as unspecified stem cells, which then become differentiated into different blood cells. There are red blood cells and white blood cells. The white blood cells are what make up the immune system, and they are developed in the bone marrow. They then differentiate as they're called to task. So some of those white blood cells become immune cells, some become cells that are going to create connective tissue in the body, but they are triggered by certain instances, like an invasion of a bacteria, to then become a white blood cell that would fight infection. And also, just as an aside, 50% of the immune system resides in the stomach. 50 to 60% of the immune system resides in the lining of our intestines. So keep that in mind too. That'll come in as useful information later on here. Development of antibodies is of utmost concern with the advent of the coronavirus. You might want to check out this interesting read. Any of the links that I've posted here on this webinar will also be available in the notes attached to the webinar. So there'll be active links in the notes, and you can go to those articles. Okay, but we've all seen articles recently with the coronavirus around antibodies and the interest in antibodies derived from those who have actually had the illness and then have antibodies in their system because their immune system has created these antibodies. There are therapies that use that. Now, there are 2 types of immunity. There's essentially 2 types. One we're born with, it's innate immunity, and then the other one is one that we sort of acquire as we go along in life after we're born. I call it the school of hard knocks. This is referred to as acquired immunity. And then there's the innate immunity. Innate immunity, as the name implies, is part of the immune system that we have just by virtue of being born. All right, it's we do not need to do anything to stimulate this immune system. It just exists. It's things such as stomach acid, or even the enzymes in our tears, our skin alone, the mucous membrane barriers through the body, particularly through the respiratory and the digestive systems. We also have the microbiome in the gut and other sources that we're born with that help to protect our body from infection and invasion. And then there's the acquired immunity. And as stated previously, acquired immunity is the part of the immune system that develops, from our experience of our environment, from our interaction with the world, with the environment. And of those 2 kinds of the acquired immunity, there are 2 categories. Scientists love to break things into categories, and so they continue to do so. And there's active immunity and passive immunity. Okay, the active immunity develops in response to an infection or a vaccination, and the passive immunity develops after you receive antibodies from someone or somewhere else. And that's, again, as I spoke about before, is a very, very interesting topic right now, and being pursued by many scientists and laboratories who are looking for medicine and medications to treat this coronavirus right now. And then there's subdivisions of the active immunity. We have the natural and the artificial. In both of those, there's natural and artificial means of acquiring these different forms of immunity. The active immunity is what most of us think of when we talk about immunity. When we think about becoming immune, we oftentimes think of being infected by a foreign substance, in a bacteria or a virus or some other microbe, and then the body, through the immune system, performs its task to protect us, and in the process, antibodies are formed, and that is referred to as active immunity. And then active immunity is natural and artificial, and that's sort of obvious. The natural is from exposure to infections. The artificial is when we receive a vaccination artificially, and we develop antibodies through a vaccination. And then the passive immunity, that develops with the antibodies of somebody else. So that's where, if someone was to be infected and go through the course of the illness, and become healthy again, their body has acquired antibodies through doing that, and that person's blood can be extracted and distilled and used as a treatment, oftentimes working. And they'll use injections or infusions of gamma globulins from that person's blood to bring antibodies into someone who does not have immunity. Number 3, 2 schools of thought with a common goal. And that common goal is really to save lives. And both of the schools of thought that I'm about to introduce are really, really in the game to save lives. It's not that one is any better than the other. I have a preference for one in a sense, but they are both very important, and I encourage everyone to really pay attention to both sources and both schools of thought here. If you look at the literature on the management of the coronavirus or any other infections and pandemics and epidemics that come down, it's quickly evident that there are these 2 different schools of thought. I refer to the schools of thought as the conventional medical model, which I'll refer to as CMM, and that's from institutions and governments, CDC, WHO, NIOSH. And then there's the second school, and that's the functional wellness model. We refer to that the FWM, and that's practiced by functional medicine practitioners, chiropractors, naturopaths, and anyone else who's interested in lifestyle change that can be applied to the care of a patient that may be suffering from an infection. The conventional medical model, it's important. There are the 6 protocols that the CDC has handed down, and we're all very familiar with those right now, from washing hands to avoiding touching the face, avoiding contact with people who are sick, staying home when you're sick, cover your cough or sneeze, and clean and disinfect frequently touched objects and surfaces. Okay, we're all know that. We would pass that test if we were asked that at this point. And those are incredibly important points, and they save lives, no doubt, in instances of epidemic and pandemics and other kinds of infections like we're seeing right now. So yeah, that's an interesting aspect. We would it seems that in the mad rush to avoid exposure through distancing and hygiene, ways to strengthen the immune system, however, have been glaringly omitted. So in that sort of blinders on approach of the conventional medical model, they tend to overlook a more functional model that I'm going to be talking about. So here it is, the functional wellness model. And I ask, why is it that some individuals who are exposed to infectious agents like the coronavirus, some get extremely ill and some seem to suffer minimally, if not at all? Well, the answer that I'd like, and this is really in a lot of ways my opinion, you'll hear arguments around this, pro and con, and anywhere in the middle of that. But my take on it is that I look at the immune system in a sense as soil of a garden, and the viruses are like weeds, okay, seeds of weeds. And the seed will only flourish in the soil that nourishes it. And for the coronavirus, the soil of choice is a weak immune system, okay? And to strengthen the immune system, to rejuvenate the immune system, is to bring a lackluster soil to the presence of the virus, and therefore that virus will then have a very difficult time in growing and even taking hold, and in that point growing from there. So I believe that part of the reason for some people getting more sick than others, and some people not showing any symptoms at all, is that they probably have a soil that is not compatible to the coronavirus, or the coronavirus does not like. And that soil, I would posit, is a robust immune system. So let's see how we accomplish this. 4, immune system rejuvenation and immunocompetence. So the conventional medical model is essentially based on the standard public health paradigm, which is hygiene, sanitation, and immunization. Those are the 3 pillars of public health in any time of an epidemic or a pandemic. It's just what they go to. That's their training, that's their schooling, and they do it really well, and it saves lives. All right? They're reducing risk and saving lives. However, there is much more that can be done. The factors that are addressed in the conventional medical model are ones which most of us have very little control of. They're basically aspects that are controlled by institutions, governments, the information we're given about it. We have to trust, these sources to inform us. And we trust them because, we want to stay healthy, and they have a good track record, hopefully, of giving you information around these things. But it is limited in many ways. They're usually managed by governments and institutions. On the other hand, the functional wellness model allows for much more agency in the choices we make. And they are choices. There are much more choices when it comes to the functional medical or functional wellness model than the conventional medical model. The immune system rejuvenation. If you notice, I use the word rejuvenation. I'm not using the much used word of immune boosting or immune supporting. Reason being is that many people, many of us, to varying degrees, have dysfunctional immune systems. I mean, it comes with the turf in a way. We live in a polluted environment. We're assaulted by chemicals and polluted water and air all the time. Our soils are depleted, so there's very little mineral and vitamin being absorbed into that plant once it goes to the market. So unless one is eating strictly organic and healthy and such, then they're going to be eating foods that are more than likely somewhat deplete in nutrients. And even the organic ones are suspect at times. And we'll talk more about that later. So the reason I like to use rejuvenation is to take the sense that there is something that might be a little broken or a little weakened, and rejuvenate that. Bring that up to a healthy form again. And the good news is that it is largely within our own and our community's control to do that. The immune system rejuvenation continued. It comes down to choices we make. If we reflect for just a minute, there are 2 we can easily come up with. If a minute or 2, we can easily come up with a list, as I've noted here. Okay. And then on first blush, this may seem to present a bleak picture of the world. The good news, however, is that we have something to say in the matter. We have choices that we can make, and things we can do, and projects we can take on to rejuvenate our immune system and give us a sense of empowerment in doing that. Some of those that I've listed here. I mean, we can put air purifiers in our home and workplace, water filtration on every sink that we drink from, and even on the shower head is not a bad idea to protect us from chlorines and other chemicals that come in and do affect our skin, which, as we noted previously, is a big part of our immune system, the skin itself. It's the first line of defense. Eating the rainbow, meaning eating healthy, unprocessed foods of many different colors, because particularly in the vegetable kingdom, the fruit and vegetable kingdom, the more colors, the more variety, the more multiplicity, the more fortification from that food. Okay, meditation for stress reduction and relaxation and centering, getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, limiting screen time, and exercising regularly, moving at least 30 minutes a day. At least 30 minutes a day. Okay? Immunocompetence, I use that term immunocompetence. Essentially, immunocompetence is the ability to fend off and overcome infection. Okay? And immunocompetence goes everywhere from like weak to strong and robust, all right? And this is probably why we see a range of severity and symptoms with the current coronavirus. That's somewhat my opinion, but I think it's based on good fact and good data around you know viral research from the past, from past infections and pandemics and epidemics. There are a number of proven ways to improve the competency. In my opinion, one of the factors that we have control over is what we put into our bodies on a daily basis. And the following slides will outline some of the actions one can take to improve their immune competence. So, eating the rainbow, eat a whole, unprocessed food diet, stop eating industrial processed foods, cut out the sugar, particularly those refined sugars and the high glycemic carbs. The corn syrups and the refined sugars are really, really damaging and very inflammatory. And then limit your alcohol consumption. Immunocompetency continued. While food is the best source, I mean, I think the best medicine is good food. All right. And I think we should always think first when we're thinking about putting things into our body about the food and beverages that we put into our body first, and that those are good, wholesome, healthy, fresh, organic foods. The reason I say this is that our foods today are, but we do need supplementation. I think for the most part, most of us need supplementation, if not all of us. And the reason I say that is because the foods today are largely depleted of vitamins, minerals, probiotics that we need to maintain a competent immune system. So that said, when choosing foods, you want to look at some of these suggestions I made and choose foods within these categories. The next few slides of the suggestions I'm making, I've taken them from recommendations from Dr. Mark Hyman, one of my colleagues in functional medicine, and you can find his work at drhyman.com. Okay, just wanted to credit the source of some of this information. So first, there are flavonoids. Okay, flavonoids are oftentimes in the category of what are referred to as antioxidants. Okay, and they would be like camphorol, which you'll find in spinach and cabbage, quercetin, which you'll find in dill, onions, and oregano, hesperidin, oleuropein, catechins, and epicatechin galates in green teas. I like to have a couple of cups of green tea a day. I've been doing that the last couple of days. Just to keep myself healthy, and it seems to be working. And then there's lauric acid. You'll find that in unrefined virgin coconut oil and also in breast milk as well. Herbs and spices, there's ginger, proven to have incredible antiviral components, as well as garlic, turmeric, rosemary, chili pepper, and oregano. All those are shown through scientific research to have antiviral and antibacterial properties, so they're really nice to take advantage of. They're prebiotic foods. So prebiotic foods are foods that, when in the gut, actually feed the probiotics. Most people have heard of probiotics, and those are, oftentimes bacteria that we'll find in yogurts and other fermented foods like kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha, yogurt, I said yogurt, things like that. Those are the probiotics, and they feed our gut, and they actually have a large effect, great effect. Probiotics have a great effect on the rest of the system, including the immune system, like a big effect on the immune system. But they've also found that the probiotics have an effect on cognitive capacity, on heart health, on fatigue, levels of fatigue, and things like that. So prebiotic foods are foods that feed those bacteria. Okay, they feed the bacteria, the probiotic bacteria. And some of them are dandelion greens, Jerusalem artichokes, garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, artichokes, bananas, apples, burdock root, flax seeds, cocoa, jicama, and seaweed, to name just a few, frankly. And then the probiotic foods. There's grass-fed yogurts, kefir, sauerkraut, tempeh, miso, kimchi, pickles, kombucha. These are mostly fermented foods, if you notice. Fermentation occurs through a bacterial process, and fermentation with sometimes involving yeast as well. But what the end product of these foods are is a food rich in probiotics, which we need to sustain optimal health, and is particularly important for the immune system. Then there are nutritional supplementations. Now, as I said before, the best way to acquire our vitamins and minerals and probiotics generally are through our diets. But I also mentioned that due to depletion of our soils and our foods and minerals and vitamins and the polluted air and water and the chemicals we're exposed to all the time on a daily basis, supplementation cannot hurt. Okay, and science shows that it actually can help, and it actually can help to rejuvenate the immune system as well. But they can't hurt either. And my recommendations are multivitamin, vitamin C, anywhere from 1,000 and 9,000 milligrams per day. You can base that on your bowel tolerance, and there's good information on that. Vitamin D3, about 1,000 to 4,000 IUs a day. Be careful with vitamin D3. Don't go much higher than 5,000 if you're going to do more than this recommended 1,000 to 4,000. 5,000 would be the cap, I'd say. Okay, zinc, about 20 milligrams a day. Zinc is big in the news now. It has incredible solid research on its positive effect on the immune system. So zinc at 20 milligrams a day is a good dosage. Quercetin, ascorbate, a great antioxidant, and goes hand in hand with vitamin C. You want to do about 500 to 1,000 milligrams a day. Melatonin to help you sleep at night. I'd say 1 to 2 milligrams at night just before bed. And then your probiotics that I had mentioned before. NAC, and that's a precursor to glutathione, which is an amazing product that will help to detox the body and support the liver in detoxing. So with the NAC, you want about 600 milligrams twice a day, broken into 2 doses. And then alpha lipoic acid, ALA, about 100 milligrams 2 times a day. Then there are also some great herbs that one can take to help to rejuvenate that immune system. My favorite are curcumin, andrographis, elderberry, astragalus, and mushroom extracts. So that will conclude today's webinar, and I will conclude that with the quote: "To keep the body in good health is a duty. Otherwise, we shall not be able to keep our minds strong and clear." And that was the Buddha about 2,600 years ago. Pretty wise guy. And I'm going to wrap it up with that. As I said, any of the links that I pointed out during this talk will be available as active links in the notes. I am really happy to be here with you today. I'm really hoping that everyone's staying healthy and staying inside and washing their hands, and are looking forward to going back out there and co-mingling again with our communities and supporting our local businesses as well. Great. Thank you very much.